Well, g'day everyone and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we are working on a little hair barrette. Again, we're using up some scrap leather to do it. So first up, we're just going to case the leather. So we're just going to wet it off. And I'm just marking the center point just to make it easier to work out where my holes go. Okay, for this one I'm using 3.5 inches as the distance between the holes and 1/2 inch on each side. So 4.5 inches is the overall length. Okay, we're just punching out the holes here for the chopstick, which is what I'm using as the actual tie piece. One's just slightly smaller than the other. And here I'm using a belt template. It's for cutting the end of straps, but you can use any sort of shape just to get the end. I mean, it can be circular, it can be square, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I've got this so I can give myself that oblong sort of shape. And just trimming to follow the lines. Alright, and just taking a little sharp point off the end there. Just because for me I like a more round shape. Okay, now I'm just marking the center in both directions of the pattern that I've chosen. Now I've chosen a 4-leaf clover. I know last time I just drew it, but it's easier if you're just following a picture. You can just trace the picture and just rule it between the holes, just lining up that center line and lining up the distance in the middle, and tape it all down to the board. Now just using the stylus just to trace out around and just following the pattern of the lace, and the vein down the center. As I said, it's a fairly simple design. You do not need to draw it for yourself. Lord knows I ain't the best at freehand drawing in the world. Now we're just gonna finish up the edge before we move on. So just a little sanding piece, just sand it back on the edge. Just so when I buff it down, it just busts down a bit easier, and it also gives me a smoother transition. Next up, we just run a beveller around the edge, just to bevel the top edge, and we'll also bevel the bottom edge. Again, it just makes it easier, makes it smoother, and just means it's all gonna slick down a lot easier. Okay, onto that edge slicking, just damp cloth, just damp it down, give it a little bit of a rub, and then onto the slicker, and we'll just slick it down. Just give it a nice smooth shiny edge all the way around. Okay, edge all finished. We're just going to case the leather again and sharpen up my swivel cutting knife, and we're just going to leave that leather for a while just so that it's got a chance to dry. And there we go. Now I'm just freehand cutting around the outside edge. I just want to put a border on it, and for me it's easier just to freehand cut that. Okay, and now we get around to cutting out the 4-leaf clover. So I cut the overlapping lines first and then the underlapping lines after that, and then the very last thing I'm going to do is the actual stem going down the center of the leaf, and that's just a very light cut in that. I'm not trying to make a big deep mark. I just want to have something there that will help me to define where that vein is. And onto the actual carving portion, I've got an array of bevelers and backgrounding tools and everything there. Just going to start with that outside edge, go around that and put a bevel all the way around the outside edge and define that border. Okay, border's all done, and now we're going to go around the actual leaves themselves, and again, the same as I cut it, I'm going to do the overlapping lines first, and then I'm going to do the underlapping lines, and this just helps to raise it up off the leather, so we got a bit more definition in it. And for this bit, we're starting on the background, so I'm just working in the tight spaces first, bring it out from the pattern, so I'm not going to hit it, and then I'll go to a larger tool and just case it up as you go along. You don't need to wait a long time for it to dry out again. You're just refreshing the moisture in the skin of the hide. So yeah, all the way around, helping to join in the beveling to each other, and just to low light all the background that's sitting behind the clover leaf. We just keep going around with that, wetting it as required until we are all backgrounded. Okay, the background's all complete, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of time to dry off before we move into the next stage, which is painting. I want to have a nice and drier surface before I put the paint on, so the paint's not going on a wet surface. Okay, we've dried out. Now it's time to start mixing up our paints. Now obviously the primary color in this one is going to be a green, so we start with our green. Okay, next up is our white for our light shades, but first of all I want to take down the actual color of the green. I think it was too dark just naturally, so I'll lighten that up first and then put our white on the edge, and so we can work in to a lighter green as well as a darker green. And then we're going to do the black on the other side, so we've got our shading color. Okay, now we're just going to paint the leaf up in that basic green to start with, and I'll also do the border in the same color. It just helps to keep some consistency in it, and both of them are going to need a couple of coats. There we go, our base color's done, and our edge, and now we're just going to start working on highlights. As you can see, the first mix of color was a bit dark, wasn't giving me the highlights I was after, so I've had to end up going back when it's dried a bit and lightening it up a bit. So there we go. Okay, mixing in the lowlights. It was too dark, so give it another mix and try and get that color that I'm after. Now, as you can see, mixing your colors just to get your shade differences can be a bit tricky, and it can take a little bit of back and forth just to get the actual color that you're after. You want to have your base color, and then you want to have something that's about half strength lighter, half strength darker, and then you want to have something that's just barely sort of tinted with the color on the light side and barely tinted with the color on the dark side. So you've just got a gradual move across between the colors. Okay, all painted up and dried up a bit, and we're just going to work our chopstick through. I want to do this before I stain it, so any stretching and that sort of thing is getting the antiquing stain on it. So just a coat over the paint. Now the paint will resist the antiquing gel, whereas the leather itself won't. So on for a little time, and just a small rag and just scrub it back off. And again on the back we give it another coat, just to uniform everything and make it all look pretty. And again, just rubbing off that excess material. And because it's got holes in it, we tend to get a little bit in the holes, so we've got to clean that out in there as well. Well, there we go, everyone. That is it. The little leather hair barrette. Just using a tiny, simple little design. It's all completed. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit that little bell notification so you know when more videos come up and you can watch them too. Subscribing and liking does help me out through the YouTube algorithm. It means that more people get to see my videos, and that to me is a good thing. I'd love to be able to share my information as far and wide as possible. And hitting that bell means you get to know when the next video is up. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and see you next time. Bye for now.